Hey everybody, my name is Steven and welcome back to the Storytime channel. Without wasting any time, let's get into our stories of the day. The time one of them actually got to speak to the manager, and it was my manager. This happened a couple of years ago, but I was reading an Ask Reddit thread that jogged this memory to come up. Anyway, I think it was like 2016-ish and I was working as a receptionist in an office. My boss/owner of the business was actually a very good friend of mine that I had known for a really long time. Anyway, she would occasionally give her employees gift cards to different places to buy some more work attire, as the dress code kept changing as the business did. I took mine and set out to Target. I was in the fitting room trying on some stuff when I hear what sounds like a stern, angry witch talking. When I come out, it is, in fact, a stern, angry witch talking. She is standing with, who I assume is her daughter, in front of a mirror that was in the hall of the dressing room areas, but not in the room itself. She's basically railing into this poor girl who can't be more than 13 or 14 about how if she lost weight, clothes might actually look good on her. This lady was actually pretty big herself. Not that it is a bad thing, but hypocrisy and mental abuse is. The poor girl looked defeated and I kinda watched them as I handed my items I didn't want back to the girl working and said something along the lines of, "Man, some people suck," in a voice that I thought was pretty low. I guess it wasn't. The witch thought the girl working the counter said it at first and started to go after her. I told her I said it because that girl didn't know me and didn't need to lose her job over me. I mean, I'm sure you can guess what happens next. She wants to speak to my manager. I try the whole "I don't work here" thing, but her rebuttal is that I obviously do, am obviously here on my day off, and should be reprimanded for being rude about a customer to my little friend. Not that I wouldn't be friends with the girl working there, she seemed lovely. But we had never met before, to my knowledge anyway. I'm about to tell her that when a new idea dawns on me. "Yeah, you can talk to my manager," I tell her, getting my phone out. "I just have to call her because she isn't here today." Entirely true, my manager was at home that day getting ready for a party I was later attending at her house. I call her, she answers, I say, "Hey, I have someone here at Target demanding to speak to you." There is some quite obvious confusion on her end. All I hear is, "Okay," before putting her on speakerphone. I'll be darned if a stranger is going to press my phone against their face. "Okay, you're on speaker." Immediately, Witchy McWitchpants starts telling her how awful I am and what I did, and is also adding spice that it's awful that no manager is on the floor to deal with this situation today. My boss started laughing hysterically, which made Witch Britches even more angry. "Well, if you ask for a random person's manager, don't be surprised if they don't work at Target, you idiot." I lost it at this point too. I apologized to the nice young lady working the rooms, put my phone to my ear so I could laugh it off with my friend/manager, and start to walk away. Of course, Witchenstein is still yelling at me because I'm awful and I see what I assume is an actual manager coming over to the rooms. So I tell my manager I'll call her back and head back to see what lies she tries to spin and also to try and make sure she doesn't accuse Fitting Room Girl of anything. Lo and behold, she was trying to blame that girl and started yelling about that witch, me this time, coming back and that I should be punished too. Luckily, the manager saw me and immediately says, "I have never seen her before in my life. She doesn't work here." Angry lady says she can't deal with her lies anymore, grabs her poor, embarrassed beyond all reason daughter, and is walking away. The manager apologized to me and the employee, but it's not like I ever blamed him. He was super kind. Once I got to my car, I felt bad that I didn't give the daughter the rest of my Target gift card, but I knew there was no way I could have. So I called my manager back and just about died laughing at the situation. So let me ask you guys, if you're in a place like this and some random Karen comes up to you and asks to talk to your manager, and you obviously don't work at that place, what would you do? Let me know in the comments section down below. I managed to pull the reverse "I don't work here" lady. Between 2011 and 2015, I worked kinda full-time for the Quebec's version of that big Canadian sports equipment retailer. My Canadian fellows would know exactly which one. I liked that job because I enjoyed helping clients as I felt more like an expert than a mere seller. We were trained monthly on new products and they wanted us to be experts in our fields. We were also encouraged to be helpful and to take our time with the customers. We didn't have a particular dressing code, but each employee would wear a bright royal blue, nylon, and zipper vest with the name of the store on the back, the logo on the front, and our name tags. Not at all conspicuous. Nonetheless, people, mostly older ladies, would often ask me if I work here. I was always baffled by that since my obvious bright blue royal nylon vest with a name tag, but I assumed it was because we were young employees. Almost everyone were university or college students in their 20s, and we would look a lot like most of our customers. From across the aisles, maybe it wasn't so obvious for an older lady that I wasn't just a young-looking fella. It never bothered me more than it intrigued me when it would happen, and I started fantasizing on the idea of someday just answering no and seeing what happens. That particular week, I had to work longer shifts than usual because of some sale we had going, and the store was quite busy. We were just past supper, and I was at that point where I would keep looking at the clock, but it didn't seem to move. The evening shift had been busy so far, but it was slacking down. We were just starting to breathe a little from the supper rush, so I started working on some facing that needed some love and attention. A lady in her late 50s or so that I didn't saw comes out of nowhere, right in front of me, and asks politely, "Sorry, young man, do you work here?" I'm literally holding a bunch of Crocs in my hands and literally placing them on the display, wearing my nylon blue royal zipper sport vest with 52 logos and my freaking name on it. I don't know what happened, since I'm a polite man and always took great care in the way I would approach our clients. Maybe I was tired, I don't know, but it felt too much and something snapped. For once, I was legit way too choked by the apparent stupidity of asking me that question, especially at this precise moment, when it seems, to me at least, quite obvious that I was indeed working here. I look at her straight in the eyes. I look down at my vest and my Crocs. I look back to her, look back at my vest. I didn't want to answer. I wanted to give her the time to take a tiny better look at me and notice my vest and the Crocs. The lady is nice, you know. She approached me politely. She's not a Karen or entitled. I'm the problem here. She keeps looking at me with those honest interrogation marks in the eyes. It's been 2 or 3 seconds of awkward silence. I felt it boiling inside. I gave her a chance. Nope, she doesn't see it. It's gonna happen soon if she doesn't see it. Oh, freak it, I'll do it. It's happening. Sorry, ma'am, I don't work here. And I just go back to putting those Crocs on the display. She goes, "Oh, sorry," and then just turns around and keeps looking for an employee. First of all, I'm bewildered. Positively confounded. She obviously had no clues whatsoever despite all the signs that I worked here. I didn't know it was possible, and I'm impressed in some way. But then I immediately regretted it. I never thought she would buy it, but she did, and now I feel bad, and I can't go back to her without looking like a big idiot. No, sorry ma'am, I was joking. I do work here. How can I help you?" She wasn't angry at all for my poor joke and said something like, "Oh my, I wasn't sure, I must admit." I served her and she left and everything was all right, but I had learned my lesson. Most of the people, when they ask if you work there, whether you actually work there or not, they legitimately have no idea whatsoever, no matter how obvious you think the answer is. I think everybody's different to a degree, and I don't think it needs to necessarily be equated to IQ. I think a lot of people, they need reassurance and they don't want to assume stuff. So even though somebody looks completely the part, maybe they don't work there, maybe they're just from some other store and they just happen to be there. I mean, it should be pretty obvious with the vest, the Crocs, putting things on the display, but some people, they just don't want to admit or assume things. I don't/shouldn't work here because I don't speak Spanish. Coming across this sub reminded me of an incident that happened several years ago at a car dealership. I always regretted that I didn't think of all the clever comebacks I wish I would have said until much later. Anyway, this story happens in San Antonio, Texas. One thing about San Antonio is that about 63% of the population is Hispanic. I myself am Hispanic and got to Texas by way of the military after I enlisted. I was not born or raised in an area that was predominantly Hispanic or in an area that Spanish was spoken so widely. On this day, my wife had dropped me off at a local dealership to pick up my car that was being serviced. As it wasn't quite ready, I began to wander around the new vehicles, really just looking around to kill time before they finished up my vehicle. At some point, the guy who this story is about comes in. Never really saw him until he was in front of me. He begins speaking to me in Spanish for quite a while, and when he finally takes a break and expects me to respond, I simply tell him, "I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish." This seemed to upset him, and he indignantly asked, "Why the heck would this place hire someone who doesn't speak Spanish?" I might add, he said this in perfect English without a hint of an accent. The only thing I could think to say at that moment was, "They didn't. I don't work here, dude." With that, he huffed and walked away. I always thought it was so odd that I was in the US, and this guy actually thought a car dealership should be only hiring people that spoke Spanish. While I have had people automatically assume I speak Spanish because of the way I look, mostly at Mexican restaurants, I've never had anybody be so rude about it before that or since then. I think I would need more context to how this town is. Like, if this town is very Hispanic and Spanish is pretty much the main language in this area, I can understand it. But I think it's kind of odd walking up to somebody in an area where Hispanic people are frequent, but English is still the predominant language, and just assuming they speak Spanish off the bat. I mean, I do understand it, but I can imagine it would make for a really odd experience. Being kind can bring brownies to your life. This happened like a year ago, and I just wanted to share it. I went to a supermarket to get something to eat before my next class at the college. I was walking in when I saw an elderly woman and her husband calling me from the parking lot. This very nice lady just wanted some help to get a heavy box inside her car. Since I'm not a total piece of garbage and I always loved my grandparents, I was happy to help them. I lift the box and her husband says, "Peppy," some nickname I guess, "I think he doesn't work here." I was wearing a black jacket, jeans, and black boots. The store's uniform was a black sweater, jeans, and safety black shoes, so I understand the confusion. She started apologizing and asked me why did I help her. I just replied, "You asked nicely." Then she just smiled and gave me something on a napkin. They were going to a family reunion, so she gave me some homemade brownies they were bringing. Well, that's it. There is always some bad experiences here, so I just wanted to share this nice and short one. Bro, imagine helping somebody out like that randomly and getting a nice homemade brownie from a grandma. That's a great experience. Whistling at me is not the way to go. This just happened 1 hour ago. I'm wearing a white hoodie, black pants, and Nike trainers, as well as clearly visible headphones and a snapback hat. In no way do I look like I work, well, anywhere really. So I'm essentially having one of those days. I hate everyone and everything and just want to be left alone. However, I had to do a little bit of shopping, so I went down to my local supermarket to pick up a few items. Bit of food, drinks, etc., walking around with my cart, headphones on, listening to old rock songs like Linkin Park, 3 Days Grace, that kind of thing, just going about my day. When my phone rings, which cuts my music off. So I answer the phone and take my headphones out, just so I don't end up shouting inside a busy supermarket like a crazy person when a soft, "Excuse me," gets said. So I push the cart and myself a few steps forward, still talking on the phone. "Excuse me," a little louder this time. I quickly glance back and move to the opposite side of the aisle, completely out of the way. "I said excuse me, now answer me and help me," this woman bellowed. I looked at the lady and showed her my phone and said, "I don't work here, go bother someone else." She just stands there, tapping her foot, looking at her watch. I look at her, shaking my head, clearly getting annoyed with her constantly tapping her foot, sighing, mumbling under her breath. I lower my phone and ask her, "Can you leave me alone? I just said I don't work here." She just shakes her head, looks back at her watch, and then whistles at me like a dog, holding her arms out to her side. "Are you done yet? I need you to help me." I just ignore her, then she whistles again, so I lashed out. "Listen here, love, I'm not a freaking dog, so don't whistle at me like one." She looks at me in shock and horror, then slaps my phone out of my hand and walks off. I shake my head as she goes away, picking up my phone and then yell at her, "Excuse me," and whistle at her as she turns the corner. I had a good laugh with my friend on the other end of the phone after that. It cheered me up and has currently got me through the last hour of my day so far and will keep me going. Also, upon remembering my last 2 stories, I realized my phone seems to attract crazy people and tends to get hit out of my hand. If that was me, I feel like these people usually wouldn't be able to get a rise out of me, but if somebody started whistling at me like a dog, How can you not get at least a little bit upset about that? Imagine a little, come help me. Like that would just piss me off. But with that being said, that's all the stories we have for today. So what I want to know is, which of these stories was your personal favorite of the day and why? Let me know which story it was and why in the comments section down below. And thank you all so very much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel today. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and don't forget to turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video from the Storytime channel. Thank you all again for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.